Lionel Messi was just one win away from defending the title, but he did not control the final. Neither did Lamine Yamal. Instead, a 19-year-old center back did. Argentina played 120 minutes without registering a single shot on target. Spain had conceded only once throughout the entire tournament, while Pau Cubarsí was named the best young player at the World Cup 8 weeks before the final. Pep Guardiola ended his 10-year era at Manchester City. In just 18 days before announcing his departure, reports claimed that City were ready to offer €90 million for Cubarsí. But this was not the first time Guardiola City had wanted him 3 years earlier. They had already tried to sign him when he was just 16 years old and had not played a single minute for Barcelona's first team. So the real question is not why City wanted Cubarsí in 2026. It's why Guardiola wanted him back in 2023, before anyone had seen enough proof of what he could become. What did Pep see? The first clue goes back to a problem he had been trying to solve since 2019 at Manchester City faced Crystal Palace without their regular center backs. So Guardiola placed Rodri and Fernandinho in the back line. Two midfielders were suddenly playing as defenders. City won the match, and after the game, Guardiola said something that would explain almost everything that followed. Our build-up was quicker because they have more intelligence, and they pass the ball so well because they are central midfielders. Pep had seen the future inside an emergency. City already had elite defenders, but Guardiola wanted something more. He wanted a center back who could see the game like a midfielder. The problem was simple. That player barely existed as Pep started building one himself. John Stones was a center back until City had the ball. Guardiola taught him to step out of the defensive line and move into midfield alongside Rodri. That role became one of the foundations of the season in which Manchester City won the treble. UEFA later named Stones in its Champions League team of the season, not as a defender, but as a midfield. But Stones was not Guardiola's first attempt to blur the line between midfield and defense. Years earlier at Barcelona, he had converted Javier Mascherano from a defensive midfielder into a center back. Mascherano moved from midfield into defense. Stones later moved in the opposite direction. So why does any of this matter for Cubarsí? Because Guardiola had spent years trying to push players across that line, combining a midfielder's intelligence with a center back's defensive instincts. Cubarsí didn't need to cross that line. He already belonged to both worlds. From the beginning, he was doing exactly what Guardiola had spent years asking his center backs to do. But what does that actually look like on the pitch? Before the ball even reached him, Cubarsí had already scanned the field. Then, with one short movement, he would play vertically through the middle and eliminate 5 opposition players from move. Those are the kinds of passes you expect from Andres Iniesta or Kevin De Bruyne, not from a center back. And City had already made this kind of bet before. In 2017, a 16-year-old La Masia center back left Barcelona for Manchester without playing a single first-team minute. His name was Eric Garcia. For years later, Barcelona brought him back. So when City returned to La Masia for another 16-year-old center back before he had even played a senior minute, it wasn't a completely new idea. It was almost a rematch. But City still had to find a way to get Cubarsí to Manchester. After Brexit, English clubs could not sign overseas players under the age of 18. So they found another route, Girona. According to reports, the plan was simple. Cubarsí would return to his childhood club, continue developing there, and then move toward Manchester once he turned 18. For a 16-year-old with no senior appearances, it looked like a safe route to the top. But Cubarsí said no. Why would he reject Guardiola, a manager who had just won the treble with Rodri? Manchester City were at their peak. Barcelona, meanwhile, were selling parts of their future just to stay on their feet. So why'd he stay? Barcelona had already been warned that Cubarsí was close to leaving. This was no longer just about his development. Barcelona had to act before Guardiola's plan became a reality. Xavi's staff moved immediately. They brought Cubarsí into first-team preseason and gave him a professional contract. But this wasn't a pathway Barcelona created only for Cubarsí. Months earlier, Xavi had brought Lamine Yamal, Cubarsí's teammate from the same generation, into first-team training and handed him his debut at just 15. Cubarsí wasn't being asked to trust a promise. He had already watched someone beside him walk through that door. At the beginning of 2024, he made his first-team debut in the Copa del Rey. 3 days later, he received his first La Liga minutes against Real Betis. After the match, Robert Lewandowski approached him and asked how old he really was. Lewandowski couldn't believe the answer. It seemed almost impossible for someone that young to play a match like that. But Betis wasn't the real test. That came in the Champions League. Barcelona faced Napoli in the second leg of the round of 16. Standing on the other side was Victor Osimhen, one of the most dangerous strikers in Europe. Barcelona won, and Cubarsí was named player of the match. But Napoli didn't just change Cubarsí's status at Barcelona. It sent a signal all the way to the Spanish national team. Only 3 days later, Luis de la Fuente called him into the senior squad. And when de la Fuente was asked why he trusted a center back who had only played a few weeks of first-team football, he didn't talk about his age. We're not surprised. We don't look at age. We only look at performance. In just 2 months, Cubarsí went from having an uncertain first-team future to starting for Barcelona and breaking Sergio Ramos' 19-year record for Spain. Now everyone could see the player Guardiola City had tried to secure before his professional debut. Barcelona had to react. In May 2024, his release clause jumped from 10 million euros to 500 million euros. And then Cubarsí started making every number look reasonable. But the real examination arrived that autumn. Hansi Flick took over Barcelona and pushed the defensive line almost to the halfway line. In that system, one late step didn't simply mean losing a duel. It meant leaving a clear road straight toward goal. Injuries to Barcelona's senior defenders meant a 17-year-old had to help hold together one of the riskiest defensive systems in Europe. So what did that system actually demand from him? Flick's high line didn't just require a center back who could pass. It required a player who could see danger before it developed, defend huge spaces behind him, and make decisions under pressure like a midfielder. Cubarsí didn't just survive that system. He became one of the reasons it worked. Alongside Inigo Martinez, he played 56 matches as Barcelona won La Liga, the Copa del Rey, and the Spanish Super Cup, while Cubarsí was helping hold together one of the most aggressive defensive lines in Europe. Guardiola's own structure was beginning to collapse. In September, Rodri tore his cruciate ligament. Over the following months, City's defenders began disappearing too. Stones, Akanji, Gias, Ake. The results collapsed with them. City lost 5 consecutive matches, the first time that had ever happened to Guardiola as a manager. After the derby defeat to Manchester United, Pep finally admitted the scale of the problem. I don't have a defense. I have to find a solution, and I don't find a solution. The run eventually reached just 1 victory in 13 matches. Then, in February, while Guardiola was still searching for a defensive solution, Barcelona extended Cubarsí's contract until 2029. The door Guardiola City had first tried to open in 2023 had just been locked. City were still searching for their defensive future. Barcelona already had theirs, but they were about to lose the defender playing beside him. The following season, his defensive partner left. The responsibility increased. Cubarsí reached 100 appearances for Barcelona before his 19th birthday, becoming the second youngest player in the club's history to reach that number. And just when it seemed Guardiola might finally complete the last wish of his era, news arrived that ended that possibility. That spring, Guardiola announced that he was leaving Manchester City. 8 weeks later, that same kid produced a perfect World Cup. In the semi-final, Spain faced an attack built around Kylian Mbappe, Ousmane Dembele, and Michael Olise. France didn't score. Cubarsí reached the final having played every minute of the tournament. He then became the fastest player in World Cup history to reach 6 clean sheets. And on the biggest possible stage, the final answer arrived. From center back, Cubarsí broke Argentina's defensive lines with 21 passes, more than any other player in the final. Argentina tried everything, and when they couldn't stop him with football, fouls started. Cubarsí was brought down 3 times before Enzo Fernandez was eventually sent off. Now remember Guardiola's words after that ordinary match against Crystal Palace. Our build-up was quicker because they have more intelligence, and they pass the ball so well because they are central midfielders. 7 years later, that sentence was no longer describing an idea. It was describing the best young player at the World Cup.